Oh yeah, you thought I was done? Thought I was just gonna keel over after completing that last review? Well, nah, I'm back and I'm ready for round 2. Bring it on, baby! Now I've calmed myself down. Let's have ourselves a chill and nice conversation about the sequel to Ys 1, Ancient Ys Vanished, Final Chapter. Okay, so this game was a speedy follow-up, being released not even a year later in 1988, once again on the PC-88 with many ports and re-releases later. Ys 1 and 2 being so similar and basically being part 1 and 2 means they've basically become bundled together in every subsequent release. This is also where it's worth mentioning that some other things I failed to mention in the original script focusing on Ys 1, such as the actual people behind the game who worked on it. Unlike most modern Falcom releases, everyone was credited, so we should make use of that. The main man behind the original Ys duology was Masaya Hoshimoto. That's not how you say it. Cut out. Okay. The main man behind the original Ys duology was Masaya Hashimoto, a developer who formerly worked at Falcom before leaving following the release. He was a director and was joined alongside Tomoyoshi Miyazaki, the scenario writer for both games. He worked solo on Ys 1, but Ys 2 had the additional credits of Takahiro Ura and Tomo Yamane. Tomoyoshi Miyazaki would leave the company following this, and formed his own called Quintet, with Masaya Hashimoto leaving for his company as well to work on several releases like ActRaiser and Terranigma, but the former had the help of another Ys staff member, and likely the most important to its and Falcom's success, that being Yuzo Koshiro. Yuzo Koshiro was only 18 when he first started working for Falcom, immediately becoming their golden goose, churning out incredible compositions with a notable rock feel, despite the limitations of the time. He was a legend and made every song in Ys 1 and 2 special and hard not to jam to while playing. While he may have left the company too and became a freelance composer, he is still sought after to this day and has done lots of work on big projects like Super Smash Bros., Entry in Odyssey, Streets of Rage 4, and even helping create the jingles for Masahiro Sakurai's YouTube channel. The only other thing worth mentioning is the anime OVAs. Ys 1 and 2 both had their own OVAs made for each game after their release, roughly adapting the story of the games and fleshing out certain backstory elements that weren't exactly touched on in the original. I haven't watched them yet, but I would like to someday. They seem fun. Alright, now that's done, let's finally talk about Ys 2. The game starts out pretty similarly to Ys 1, but this time you see a girl named Lilia staring at you in a way that basically screams, "Hey, look at how detailed our pixel work is, please buy our merch." Jokes aside, this was a pretty impressive scene to be put into a game like this at the time, and it was what cemented her popularity in Japanese fanbase for years, even becoming the Falcom mascot for a while. Once you get into your first battles after buying equipment from the shop, you'll notice some interesting changes. For one, this game focuses more on diagonal attacks being more effective, as opposed to the more exact strategy of the first game. Ys 2 can definitely be considered an easier game to get consistent damage in, and most players will probably prefer it. However, to make this less easy, the game introduces actual attacks from enemies that are telegraphed with a white glow. These make sure you're more careful and not as easily able to just spam them to death, so it's a welcome addition in my opinion. What's a bit more questionable though is the introduction of fire magic. This is the main new attack type Ys 2 introduces, and it's insanely simple. You just throw out small fireballs and it slowly depletes an MP meter. You can also throw a large burst by charging it up. However, the issue here is that the game relies so heavily on the fire magic that most bosses require using fire magic and only fire magic, and all other magic types aren't offense based at all. This, in my opinion, causes most bosses to be less interesting than the ones seen previously. They were hit and miss, don't get me wrong, but were generally interesting and had some good use of bump-based combat. So it's disappointing having the sequel not really expand on that. This game also changes the overall pacing, having a lot more areas to explore, with some being dungeons that directly connect to other dungeons. The Rastini Mine and the Sanctuary of Toll, for example, connect to each other many times, having you visit different sections of the sanctuary as you explore the mines. But this does have the drawback of something that's often criticized when it comes to Ys 2, its confusing level design.
And you may ask yourself, well, how the fuck did I get here?
Every main area of the game is littered with hallways and rooms that always seem to lead to dead ends, with many looking similar to others on top of that. It can make Ys 2 a slog if you're bad with mazes, which I'm not, but it still feels very dated, and worse than anything Ys 1 had in terms of its level design. At the beginning of the game, you'll be introduced to a unique mechanic to Ys 2, the gift mechanic. If you wander around the area outside of the starting village, or check the local shop, you'll find some random items like flowers and apples. These are gift items, and can be used to heal yourself, or be gifted to an NPC for certain rewards. There's lots of cool stuff to uncover with this mechanic, and many gift items are easily farmable, so we recommend messing with it a bit. You might find some cool secrets that way. That's what this game does super well, which is secrets. It's even bigger than East 1, and there's so many cool little Easter eggs and rewards to find, which makes this game super fun to get achievements in, since many are tied to these secrets. As for the general structure of the game, East 2 is far more linear than you might expect, not really having a central hub anymore, but a long connecting path from start to end. Kind of like Undertale. Yes, that is the best comparison I could think of. But this trek is made less taxing once you unlock Return Magic, which is the first full-on fast travel system in East. East 1 had wings, yeah, but those just teleport you back to Manea, so it was more of an escape rope. Return Magic lets you return to any previous town or village you visited, and can be super handy to end the amount of backtracking you need to do, which helps the pacing a lot. Speaking of magic, it's a very mixed bag overall. One other type you get is Alter Magic, that lets you turn into a Roo and talk to enemies, which is the most amazing feature in any game ever, but others are just kinda boring. Light Magic illuminates dark areas. You barely need this anywhere. Time Magic stops enemies from moving. Wow, that's great. JoJo fans are probably happy this is here, but this is basically just a mirror again. Meh. And Shield Magic is just that. It gives you a shield. Cool, I already have one of those. It can lead to this whole magic system being pretty underwhelming and far from the best use of it in the series, especially with only one attack type. Back to the story, East 2's plot structure is far more detailed too, having you talking to many characters early on and befriending many different people throughout your journey through East. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, you're now situated on the land of East, which is a floating rock in the sky. This setting, as well as the series itself, gets its namesake from a mythical city said to be located off the coast of Brittany, which Asteria itself is the East equivalent to. In fact, the entire world in these games is a fantasy version of a real one, with most focusing on the Eurasian continent during the Roman Empire's conquest of the region, sign that will be increasingly prevalent to later titles. I'm not gonna do a story play-by-play this time since I don't want to pad out this video much more, but I do want to touch on the ending. So yeah, obvious spoiler warning here. Once you get to the end and fight through easily the most frustrating part of this game, Solomon's Shrine, because Jesus, it's impossible to navigate this thing without a guide, you start meeting many of the friends you made along the way, and they all assist you in opening the path to the final boss. Despite how tough it may be, it's still put down for good, and you get to celebrate this victory with all your friends, both from East 1 and East 2. Turns out, everyone here is actually a descendant of the 6 priests of East, who have had many mentions in this game and are shown more prominently in East's origin. However, this also confirms that Fina and Rhea are actually important characters after all, being revealed to be the twin goddesses who watched over the Black Pearl, to which was the source of all the dark magic. Everyone starts to head off, but Adol and Fina have a final heart-to-heart, talking of how she was happy to get to live a normal life for a brief period of time, unburdened by her lofty position she'd been given. And Fina only got this after being rescued by Adol, and there was even an optional conversation East 1 that had her expressing this much earlier. Despite bringing peace to Asteria, this victory becomes bittersweet as Fina and Rhea now have to fulfill their roles and keep the Black Pearl sealed for all eternity, and upon leaving Adol with a final goodbye, this happens. Chronologically, this is the first real instance of Adol speaking, and it changes this ending dramatically. It makes you feel like this had a greater effect on Adol than you might have expected. He probably had feelings for Fina early on, and despite all the signs, hoped that they could still be together, whether she be mortal or a deity. But reality wasn't so kind. He couldn't stop her from leaving, knowing what was best, but still lamented what could have been. Earlier Falcom releases pushed Lilia as Adol's love interest in this game, and she definitely still shows her interest in him in this version, but modern Falcom showed a different perspective of love at first sight, a love that was never meant to be. And it's hard to argue against this given later entries. It's why, despite what others may think, Adol Kristen isn't really a blank slate to me, or a player character. He's a full-on character, and man, I think we'll see in later entries even more why I believe this. East 2 is still fucking great, man. I have some issues with it, most definitely. The bosses were a step back, the magic kinda sucked, and the level design is some of the worst, but still captures that same charm I loved in East 1, expanding its cast, adding to its own mythos, and even later versions adding so many cool secrets and extra details. I still think East 1 is a more digestible game, and it's probably more fun to speedrun, but East 2 is a classic either way, and the next game might be even better.